It was a chilly Sunday afternoon in downtown Toronto, the kind of day where the smell of coffee and freshly baked pastries drifts out of every cafe and makes people slow down just to breathe it in. Inside one of those small cafes, a little boy named Liam stood beside his mother, clutching her coat tightly. His big brown eyes were fixed on a tray of chocolate cupcakes sitting behind the glass counter, their frosting piled high with swirls of cream and tiny sugar stars that sparkled under the warm lights. He didn't blink, he didn't move, he just stared. His mother, Emily, noticed but tried to distract him. "Come on, sweetheart," she whispered softly, tugging his sleeve. Her voice trembled a little, not from anger, but from exhaustion. Life had been hard lately. Ever since she lost her job at the insurance office, things had spiraled. She had taken on small cleaning jobs and skipped meals so Liam wouldn't have to. Today, she had just enough money for one cup of coffee, the cheapest thing on the menu, just to keep them warm inside for a few minutes. The waiter behind the counter, a young man with slicked back hair, noticed the boy's stare. He saw the longing, the way Liam's lips moved slightly as if he could taste the cupcake without touching it. But he also saw Emily's old coat, her torn gloves, and the way she avoided looking at the pastries. He pretended not to notice, turning instead to wipe the counter. "Can I help you?" he asked without much warmth. "Just one coffee, please," Emily said quietly, placing a few coins on the counter. Liam's eyes stayed on the cupcakes even as his mother guided him to a small table in the corner. The boy didn't say a word, but Emily knew what was in his heart. It broke her. She had promised herself she'd buy him something sweet once things got better. Maybe when she found a job. Maybe when the bills stopped coming faster than she could pay them. At a nearby table, an older woman in a soft blue coat sat reading a newspaper. Her hair was silver, her hands delicate but strong. Her name was Mrs. Turner, a retired schoolteacher who had come in for her usual tea and muffin. But today, her attention wasn't on the news. It was on the little boy staring at the cupcakes and the mother trying to hide her tears. She watched as Emily placed her cup of coffee in front of her son, pretending it was enough. "It's warm, sweetheart, let's share," Emily said. Liam nodded, trying to be strong like his mom, even though he was just 6 years old. Mrs. Turner's heart ached. She had taught hundreds of children, seen every kind of hunger, the kind that food could fill and the kind that came from being forgotten. She folded her newspaper quietly, stood up, and walked to the counter. "Excuse me," she said softly to the waiter. "I'd like to order 6 of those cupcakes, please. And could you do me a favor? Bring them to that table over there. But don't tell them it's from me." The waiter hesitated, his earlier indifference melting away. He nodded, a bit embarrassed. He placed the cupcakes on a small tray, added 2 glasses of milk, and carried them to Emily's table. Emily looked up in confusion. I think there's been a mistake," she stammered. The waiter smiled gently this time. "No mistake, ma'am. Someone wanted you to have these." Liam's eyes widened in disbelief. "Mommy, cupcakes," he whispered, almost afraid to touch them. Tears filled Emily's eyes before she could stop them. "Sweetheart, say thank you," she whispered, even though she didn't know who to thank. Liam folded his tiny hands together and said, "Thank you," to the air, hoping whoever sent them could somehow hear. From across the room, Mrs. Turner smiled behind her cup of tea, pretending to read her paper again. She didn't need thanks. She just wanted them to feel seen. For a few quiet minutes, the cafe felt warmer. Liam took small bites, savoring every crumb, while Emily watched him with a mixture of relief and sadness. She hadn't seen him smile like that in weeks. That small act, 6 cupcakes and 2 glasses of milk, had turned a dark day into something almost magical. When they finished, Emily wiped her son's mouth and stood to leave. As she passed by Mrs. Turner's table, their eyes met briefly. The older woman gave her a gentle nod, and Emily understood. She didn't need to ask. That small moment of human kindness spoke louder than words ever could. Outside, the wind was biting again, but Emily felt something warm spreading through her chest, hope. "Mommy," Liam said, holding her hand tightly, "do you think God sent that lady?" Emily smiled softly. "Maybe, sweetheart, or maybe God sent us here, so she could find us." They walked down the street, hand in hand, the city lights glowing above them like tiny stars. Behind the cafe window, Mrs. Turner watched them go, her eyes glistening. She thought of her late husband, who used to say, "Kindness is the only thing that never gets old." That night, Emily tucked Liam into bed in their small apartment. He was still talking about the cupcakes, about the kind lady they didn't know. Emily didn't have answers for all his questions, but she whispered a silent prayer of thanks, not just for the cupcakes, but for the reminder that good people still existed. And somewhere, in a little cafe in downtown Toronto, an empty cupcake tray sat behind the glass. The waiter, now deep in thought, watched it and smiled. Because that afternoon, he too had learned something, that sometimes, the smallest gestures can change someone's world. The next morning, when Emily walked past the cafe again, she noticed a sign in the window. It said, "Pay it forward, buy a coffee or cupcake for someone in need." There was already a list of names beneath it. The kindness had spread, and just like that, one little boy's longing look had sparked something bigger than anyone expected, a chain of compassion that reminded everyone who walked through that door that even in a big city, humanity still had a heart.